Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk about setting up Hold'em Manager. It's poker software that you can use to analyze your game. There's tons of filters, and it also gives you your results, records all your results, as well as your opponents. You can analyze your opponents as well and find out where they're making mistakes and improve on your game from there. So go ahead and get started. First, you want to click the link below the YouTube video, or if you're on the Facebook page, it'll have a link to Hold'em Manager. It looks something like this: hold'emmanager.com, happy, happy, happy. You can just click the link and it'll bring you to the Hold'em Manager page. Once you're at the Hold'em Manager page, since you don't have Hold'em Manager 2 at this point, you would want to download the 30-day free trial and click that. And it'll download. I'm going to cancel download since I already have it. And once you're done loading it onto your computer, installing it, you can go ahead and open it up. Little orange icon. This is what the Hold'em Manager 2 starting page looks like. It takes a good 30 seconds to load up Hold'em Manager 2. It is a pretty CPU intensive software. It takes a minute to load up. Give it a second. It's loading up whatever hands I have. I don't have many hands in my database at this point. I purged my database for the new year. So now that you're into Hold'em Manager, I'll go through a few things that you can use to analyze your game. Most stuff is going to be on reports. If you click the reports tab, you can have cash results, tournament results, and then you have sub tabs down here. This gives you all your results. As you can see, for me, I have right around $6,000 in winnings over 226 tournaments. If you click the tourneys tab, it'll bring up graphs, and so that's pretty cool. First, what you want to do when you get into Hold'em Manager, though, is you want to use the site setup. So when you click the site setup, depending on what site you're playing on, I recommend, if you're in the US, playing on either ACR, which is Winning Poker Network, or Bovada. ACR offers pretty good deposit bonus and promotions for their players, so I highly recommend playing on that site. There's a link before that below the YouTube video as well. So once you get in here, you want to click Winning Poker, because it's ACR is on Winning Poker Network, and you can click Auto Detect. When you click Auto Detect, it'll find automatically your hand history folders. Once you do that, you can close out and you can select a player. By doing that, you click Select Player, and you can open up. Mine's under Hero, so that's where mine would be. That's what I named him. Yours is going to be whatever you signed up your account on ACR as. So let me get to setting up a HUD. A HUD is pretty standard these days. Something you need to use in a tournament or a cash game. Gives you an idea of what types of hands your opponent's playing, what ranges he has. And yeah, so setting up a good HUD is pretty necessary. We'll start by clicking HUD settings, and you have a HUD designer here. I'll go through the HUD stats that I have and how to create them and why I think these ones are a real necessity. Oh, it doesn't make it bigger. Okay, so here, start off, I can look at all these numbers. It might look like a lot of numbers, but if you understand how you laid it out, it works really well. So the first number here is going to be number of hands that I have on the opponent. As you can see here, this kind of lists whatever I have on the lines, and then when it goes to new line, it would drop down to the second line. So it would be their name, number of hands, how much they've won or lost, and then their aggression factor. Their VPIP is how many times they've called or voluntarily put money in the pot pre-flop. Their pre-flop raise percentage, their 3-bet, their squeeze percentage, their 4-bet range, and their fold to 4-bet. So I use these a lot. These are pretty much a standard overview of the player. Then when I drop it down to the next line, I have their pre-flop raise, which is this number, but from position. So if you look right here, you can see early position, pre-flop raise, middle position, cutoff, button, small blind, and big blind. So if you just go across right here, that's how much they're opening from that specific position. So if someone's opening 50% on the button, which is pretty standard, you know that he's playing about 50% of his hands, and you can make your plays from there. You can adjust your ranges to exploit him as best as possible. The last number that's white on here I have is it's actually a fold to steal, and I use this as a steal percentage would be cutoff, button, or small blind raising, and how often someone is in the small blind or big blind folding to a steal. That's what this number is. So if this number is above 70, right around 67% is where it's starting to get immediately profitable to raise any two cards. So once this number gets above 67, I start just pounding on them with a lot of hands. Down to the next line is my 3-bet line. So this is positional for 3 bets. As you can see, it's middle position because early position would be the raiser, so middle position would have to 3-bet. You have middle position, cutoff, button, small blind, big blind, and then fold to 3-bet. Fold to 3-bet's good to know. I keep it white as well. It's good to know when someone's folding to 3-bets a lot. If they're never folding to 3-bets, you probably want to be a little bit more value heavy using linear ranges. And I'll go through what pre-flop ranges should look like in another video. But if they're folding too much, then I'm just 3-betting them with all my junky hands and then calling with all my good hands. That way I can play post-flop and get money from them with my good hands, and then folding my bad hands, or getting them to fold with when I have bad hands and just profiting with my bad hands. The next line here you can see is C-bet percentage, fold to C-bet. This is flop C-bet, I'm sorry, flop C-bet, fold to C-bet, turn C-bet, turn fold to C-bet, and river C-bet, and river fold to C-bet. So these are all pretty much should be right around 50% for a good balanced player. Now it could go up or down in the games you play in, depending on the opponents you're playing against. But overall, most good players will end up being between 40 and 60% on all these stats. And then the last line, I have a mix of stats, and it's flop, turn, and river check raise percentage. And those should be somewhere between 9 and 15%. Some people get higher, some people are lower. Obviously, you can adjust your play to whatever they're doing. If someone's check raising you 30% of the time, then you know they're just check raising you with a bunch of junk. And then the last three stats I have on my HUD are flop bet versus miss c-bet, turn versus miss c-bet, and river versus miss c-bet. So this would be, say I open on the button, big blind calls, he checks to me, I check back, and then him stabbing on the turn would be the turn. Or if I bet twice and then I check to him and he's in position and he stabs, that's what the river one is. And then if I'm out of position on the flop and as the pre-flop raiser, I check and he bets into me, that's the flop. So those are pretty much the basic stats that I would recommend having on a HUD. I also recommend going into your stat appearance and looking through. I set them up for different colors. So what I think is probably the right number should be right in the orange area. If they're too tight, I have them red. If they're too loose, I have them green. So someone with obviously a total 3-bet percentage over 10.5% is going to be green. Someone that's not 3-betting enough, less than 6% pretty much, is going to be tight red. So these just kind of give a color indication of where they're at. Just makes it easier to identify stats. And I recommend going through and labeling all your stats different colors. I did this with all mine. I think it's a pretty standard thing to do. And then after you're done with that, you can go down to the pop-up designer. This is really important as well. Finding a good pop-up. I created a pop-up. They have some pretty good pop-ups that come with the software. I created one more. I'm going to add a couple more in mine, but the one I created was 3-bet. So here it is. Let me open that up. And you can see here, this is a pop-up during gameplay. I click their HUD and it'll pop up all these stats for me. And these are just 3-bet stats. So flop, c-bet, and a 3-bet pot. This is all in 3-bet pots. So how often opponent c-bets, how often they c-bet in position, how often they c-bet out of position, flop c-bet versus raise. So how they respond to a raise in these types of pots, how they respond to donk bets, if they skip c-bets out of position and check call, check raise, or check fold. Those are those stats. Versus a c-bet, if they're calling, raising, or folding to it. And I have overall and in position. I think those are more necessary than the out of position stat. You're probably not going to have as much. And you're probably just using the overall most of the time. Versus miss c-bet, we've gone over that. And out of position play. So if they're doing different things. And post-flop aggression factors and whatnot down here. So I recommend finding some good stats that you think are going to be useful for you and putting those in a pop-up as well. So I'll go ahead and open up let's see if I can find a couple hands. Okay, here we go. I don't know if it's gonna still have HUD stats on these. I think these tournaments were played on. I'm not sure if it was Bovada or ACR. So as you can see, my HUD's popping up, and they're loading up stats right now. And these players I don't have many stats on because during a tournament this guy only have 32 hands on. During tournaments you're not going to build a lot of hands, but you can get a quick overview of these players. As you can see, a lot of my stats are already in the orange area. It shows that I have 19,000 hands that are recorded. So I think these are mostly pretty standard. I have a high flop and turn check raise percentage. This is tournaments, so you're a little bit more shallow stack. I really think that you should be check raising a lot when you're more shallow stack. And I'm probably not stabbing versus miss c-bet enough. But the rest of the stats look pretty good. So if you click on the HUD, and click on my HUD, and you see the tabs up top, this is an overview of the player, their 3-bet percentages, pre-flop raise percentages, VPIPs and cold calls, and then you have steal stats, what they're stealing from in certain positions, their fold to steal, re-stealing, flop stats, turn stats, river stats. Those are all pretty standard for a Hold'em manager. I added the 3-bet stats. As you can see, they're white. I'm not sure why the boxes are white, but the ones I added are white. So you can see all my stats here in a 3-bet pot, and shows you the win rate of the player as well and how much they've won over time. This is not real money. This is not 4,500,000. It's tournament chips. It's what I've won over time. Next, I want to talk about the other tabs in Hold'em Manager. As you can see, I'll just go across the tabs from left to right. Here you have database options. If you click, it'll open up and give you options to import, export your hands, purge, or sync it somewhere else. Pretty basic stuff. Once we get over to the reports tab, obviously you have the tabs here for cash, tournament, site setups, hand importing. If you have a hand history folder that you would like to import, or hand histories that you've saved, or if someone transfers you hand histories, you can load them in and analyze them. So that's what this button's used for. You can stop the HUD here, also stop import if you want. Yeah, there's no reason for me to have it on right now. I'm actually not playing. You have more reports here, just different reports. Date range, you can filter the date range. These are just filters right here. Game types, Hold'em, Omaha, no limit, and then the more filters button. The more filters button is probably going to be the most useful one overall. If you open it up, it takes a second to load. So there's a lot of different filters you can use. There's board texture filters. If you want to filter a monotone flop, if you want to see if you win or lose on monotone flops, or if you want to rainbow flops, or if you want to go to the whole card filter and use just certain, you want to just see how you do with pocket pairs, you can do that. You can do suited Broadway cards, add those in. You can add some tight range here and open up and see. You can see your filter here, and you can hit OK, and it'll filter out everything just down to that, so you can see whether you're winning or losing in that, with those types of hands. Pretty good stuff. So there's a bunch of different filters here you can play with. And then you can go over to active session. That's the next tab. When you're playing on ACR, you'll have if you're playing on ACR, you'll have hands active. Looks like I have an active session that I didn't shut down. Oh, it's from the other day. Looks like my showdown winnings are going downhill, but my EV is okay. Must have been a tough game. So this will just give you your graph in real time on the active session that you're playing. It tells you your hands, your EV net one, your EV big blind per 100, and your biggest wins, biggest losses, and then your actual net one and your actual BB per 100, your duration, and the date. of playing. These are all the hands during that session as well. You can click one and it'll open up. From there, you can go over to opponents. When you click the opponents tab, you can look through your opponent's lines. I like the line analysis tool. It's pretty cool. It has this pie graph where you can see how weighted they are in certain scenarios. You can see I have it as me as hero, but when you're playing against opponents, it'll have all your opponents on the left side over here, and you can click an opponent and you can select if they're out of position, in position, or user defined absolute positions. You can select their pre-flop line, whether they called or 3-bet, called a 3-bet, 4-bet, what they did. And then you can do board textures and their post-flop line, whether it's bet raise, bet call, bet, just bet. You can do all their lines and see how weighted they are. And if here you can see 13% of the hands that it has loaded up, it only is loading 250 hands, but 13% of them are nothing, 38% are two pair or better. So this is a pretty useful tool, even in real time. If you have a couple screens, you can kind of go over here and look at a player. Hold'em Manager apps. I don't know what this is. Okay, these are just the different apps. I'll just go across the different apps as they are. Note Caddy is another. These are all add-ons to Hold'em Manager. Note Caddy, a lot of more advanced players use this. There's a demo up here about it. It's pretty cool. It gives you notes on the players automatically, so you don't have to take them. Table Ninja is a hotkey program. I'm gonna skip that. Leak Buster, this is pretty cool. After you get about 100,000 hands in your database, it's pretty cool to buy this add-on and run Leak Buster, and it'll tell you where you're making mistakes in your game and what you should do to fix them. So it's pretty cool. Tilt Breaker, I haven't played around with. Probably this same type of thing. Probably identifies when you're making a lot of suboptimal plays and tries to get you to not do that. So I haven't even played around with this software though. Sit and Go Wizard trains you for sit and goes, and Table Scanner is a table scanning software for identifying where fish are. You don't really need the table scanner. Sit and Go Wizard's good if you like playing sit and goes. It'll help train you on what you should be doing, and yeah, so those are pretty much the tabs in Hold'em Manager. It's a pretty useful software. If you can go through and filter everything, and after you get a fair amount of hands, it's pretty good for your game. So it's pretty powerful software. Highly recommend using it to its fullest extent. It'll help you get much better at the game. But that's all I got for Hold'em Manager right now. Next video will probably be about some type of play. So thanks for tuning in. This is David Alford for Advanced Poker Training and Rakeback.